Dan, of course, we got some buyers and some sellers. I got a few names here that producer John is putting a rundown that I'm very curious about myself. So you're going to tell me when I give you the name if you are buying their future production or you are selling. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Number one. I feel like this should be an easy one. This should be an easy one. John just threw you like a 70-mile-an-hour fastball up the middle that you should just crush. The fun guy, Kawhi Leonard, who it was just announced yesterday that he underwent a knee procedure. Of course, surprise, surprise, coming off of what we saw during the Olympics, warm up to the Olympics, where he was on the roster. You didn't really see him play. The announcement that he wasn't playing, there was a lot of controversy and everything else. Of course he had a procedure. Of course nobody said anything about it. Of course he was laboring during that process, in all likelihood because he had a knee procedure and nobody knew about it. Discussion for another day, but let's just go with Kawhi Leonard, who played, I believe, like 72 games last year. It kind of went under talked about because he missed everything going into the playoffs and didn't look good. Are you buying or selling Kawhi Leonard this season?
I mean, you got to sell him at this point. Anything related to a knee injury with Kawhi Leonard, Joel Embiid, there's a list of them. It's concerning. And right now, Kawhi Leonard's ADP was already falling a little bit, but I think now it might drop into the 4th and 5th round. I think there's a point where I'd be like, all right, it's worth the risk, because the timeline that they provided, they just said they don't know whether he's going to be ready for the regular season. He could be ready by, November. I'm cool with Kawhi Leonard. But this is also going to be an injury management thing that's probably going to continue and fester throughout the regular season here. This is a pattern we've seen with Kawhi Leonard before. I'm concerned. Steve Ballmer just opened up that brand new facility, and you got your number one guy already on the shelf. Not a good look.
Paul George knew something. Like let's just say it's a discussion we can have here on another day. But Paul George knew something. Now next, Paul George's teammate, Mr. Joel Embiid, who just signed a 3-year, almost $200 million extension with the 76ers, going to quiet a lot of that noise. He had the injury problems going into that first round playoff series against the Knicks, but still balled, reasonably speaking. How do you see him? You buying or selling?
I'm buying. And I think it's actually for what you said. Getting a 3-and-D, one of the best 3-and-D wings in the game in Paul George to now be in that starting lineup can now reduce some of the load that Joel thinks, I guess, is on his back all the time. The one problem that I have with Joel Embiid is that he does too much. Now he's in a position where he can hang out in the post, get those easy middies that he's so good at. He doesn't need to do these Euro step, going through the lane, getting fouled and doing all the extra stuff. Like that's, bruh, you're old, you're injury prone. Now's the time to take a step back, still do your thing. You'll still see a 30% usage rate. Just let Tyrese Maxey and Paul George go to work as well. This is going to be a good thing for the Sixers. It's going to be a great thing for Joel Embiid. And I think now people are going to get him at a slight discount. He's going number 8 in fantasy drafts, which I think he should easily be a number 5 pick based off what we've seen in the past. So it's only going to go up for Joel Embiid. Hopefully he can play more than 65 games.
Sneakily, y'all, this is year 11 for Joel Embiid. Now, granted, he missed a couple of those years with the back injury and everything else, but since he's been in the league, I believe this is year 11. I believe this is the 14. Was it the 14 draft or the 15 draft?
I think you're right. I think it was 14.
Okay. All right. It's funny. I can name a draft from 1994, but once I get past a certain year, like they just all start blending together, I feel like I'm so old. Now, somebody else's whose body is old, Kristaps Porzingis. He says he's targeting a December return date from ankle surgery. You saw him laboring around during the finals. Celtics really didn't actually need him, but where do you see him buying or selling?
He's already fallen to like the 8th, 9th round of fantasy drafts, and I'd be okay waiting until around, like round 9 to get him, because while they're optimistic about this December timeline, I saw a couple videos of him shooting in the gym on one leg. I'm not convinced that they're going to bring him back and just give him 30 minutes, right? This is going to be a process. It's going to be a ramp-up process. We may not see him actually play to the level and expectation that fantasy managers need until like February. And so if that's the case, why would you invest, like, go get a healthy guy that can contribute from, October to February? It's a draft and stash for me. I understand it if you are looking for some value late that you think can pop off at the end of the season, but I'd probably avoid it altogether because, KP is not realistically playing like KP ball until at least the All-Star break.
Now we've reached, ladies and gentlemen, the segment of the program. The segment of the summer and fall where we bring you special reports from the gym. Now, when I say the gym, I mean the summer workouts that, some of these trainers have, and they post all these videos of guys like not missing a jump shot. They don't miss a jump shot in the summer, right? I'm just presumably happy to see Ben Simmons taking a jump shot. I don't know if that means anything, but he's taking a jump shot. It says he's fully recovered from back surgery. It says he's ready for Nets training camp. Yes, strain that violin. Are you buying or selling on Ben Simmons?
I'm out. I mean, granted, at the cost, it's not going to cost you much, but either way, you won't find me drafting him this year. I just don't believe it. At this point, I don't know if it's a Brooklyn thing. Maybe he doesn't feel supported by them. I don't know what it is. He's just not going to play for a majority of the season. He might play for a portion of it, and you might get something out of it, but there's nothing reliable about Ben Simmons. And if you're playing a season-long game, it's just very hard to trust someone that's not shown anything in terms of his ability to be healthy, play through injury. And whether his back injury was, significant enough to keep him out this long, that's not for me to know. All I know is that, everything I'm seeing from the Brooklyn Nets is the investment in Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton. That's what they're going with. Everybody else is probably tradable or expendable. So if you're investing in the Brooklyn Nets, I would pay more attention to Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton. Avoid Ben Simmons.
You said they're invested in Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton. They're invested in Cooper Flagg. That's what they're invested in, y'all.
Facts.
They would sign that man to an NIL deal today if they could.
Yeah.
Now, last one, and I feel like this is kind of a cheat because Mitchell Robinson has just been announced that, again, he's injured. He'll miss the start of the regular season after off-season ankle surgery. He has the ankles. He had the bad hand, I remember, or bad wrist a couple of years ago. Where do you sell him? Are you buying or selling Mitchell Robinson?
This is just tough, man. I got to sell it because at this point, another person you just can't trust in fantasy. When he's on the court, though, very impactful defender, one of the best rim protectors they have in the game, offensive rebounding as well. And at this point, you just can't. I don't. When are we going to get Mitchell back? And same thing. I just don't know that you can just throw him in there and get 30 minutes. He wasn't even going to be a 30 minutes guy anyway. He's probably more of a 20-minute guy. So if you need blocks late, sure, you can do a draft and stash, but I'd probably be out on Mitchell Robinson too. I'd be much more interested in taking a Trace Jackson Davis, Walker Kessler, just a young big man. But to that point of Mitchell Robinson's absence, I wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think the Knicks are going to do? I think the obvious thing is you could play Julius Randle more at center. Maybe you play Precious Achiuwa. Do you think that they're going to make a move and try to grab somebody? Because it's not like they don't have assets that they could sell to maybe get in a big man to kind of fill that void until Mitchell's back.
They do. They have draft capital, shockingly, even after all the moves that they've made, even acquiring Mikal Bridges, they still have their own picks. They got other teams' picks. They've cleaned up their books pretty good, honestly, over the past 5 or 6 years. Yeah. So with Julius Randle, I would be weary of depending too much on him to play 5.
Mm-hmm. Tibbs doesn't typically do that either. He loves that standard big traditional big.
Tibbs like playing big, and Tibbs also wants to bludgeon you, which means those two things work in tandem. If I'm playing bigger than you, then that means I can beat you up. If I'm playing smaller than you, I'm at a size disadvantage. I don't think that's the way that Tibbs wants to play. And I think with Julius Randle coming off of a shoulder injury, which it takes guys a long time to believe it or not. Those shoulder injuries are almost as tricky as hamstrings, almost as tricky as knee injuries for guys to come back from and to fully be themselves. It took Paul George, I won't say a long time, but it took him a while to get fully comfortable back being himself after that shoulder injury. Do you want to put Julius Randle in that type of harm's way at that high of a level because you're going to exclusively play him at the 5? I think they're going to search and scour the trade market to see if they could get something there.